Right, so this is Griffin-88, and I'm here to talk about Totoro. Tonari no Totoro, or My Neighbor Totoro in English, is a 1988 film by master animator Hayao Miyazaki, and is an hour and 26 minutes long. This is one of my favorite films of all time. I remember watching it as a kid, way more than a Disney film, and that's probably why I picked it as the first movie to review. So the story starts with Satsuki and her younger sister Mei, spelled M-E-I, moving into their new house in the country. The time period of this movie is probably the 50s or 60s, not the 80s when it was made. The house they move into is big and kind of falling apart, which, to any kid, is just awesome. The house is infested with soot sprites, which are a recurring Miyazaki character, the oldest next to the fox squirrels. The English version, or maybe it's just the dad, who is a professor and maybe doesn't believe in the old stories, calls them dust bunnies, but they are actually domestic spirits from old Japanese folktales, probably relating back to Shintoism. The bathing scene is one that did make my parents blush, but you have to understand that bathing together is for the Japanese what the family dinner table is for us. Tend to be with family, and there's nothing beyond that really. In fact, this comes from a non-Christian influenced culture. Most Westerners aren't able to think beyond the box Christianity created around things concerning the body. But I don't want to ramble. I didn't even think about being naked as something bad as a kid, so I don't think it will register with a 6-year-old the same way it registers with us adults. The mom in the family is sick and has to stay in the hospital. I've debated with many peers and my own family as what illness it could be, and we came up with everything from leukemia to AIDS. I actually think it is leukemia, or some other form of radiation disease, which, if you remember from the last episode of this blog, is a popular subject for Japanese media. The fact that this takes place in the 50s or 60s lends credence to this theory, and it has been documented that cases of leukemia in Japan were at a peak during the 50s and 60s. We first meet Totoro when Mei is playing in the yard and spots a little Totoro. They kind of look like rabbits. She chases it under the house where it manages to almost make an escape with its medium-sized friend, but Mei spots them and chases them into the woods, where she falls down a big hole and lands in a cavern in the tree where the big Totoro sits. So Mei meets the big Totoro, but nobody believes her. The dad tells him that Totoro is the king of the forest, and that he can only see him if he wants you to. The rope around the tree is called a shiminawa, and is associated with Shinto practices. You can also see a dilapidated shrine at the bottom of the tree, and other little stone statues representing figures of Shintoism. The shrine's presence is most likely evidence of Miyazaki's respect for the traditions of Japan, but the run-down state of it also represents the change Japan was going through to become more modern. I love the snail. He's just really pretty. Proof that you can do just 2 seconds of animation really, really well. The next time Totoro appears, it's raining. The bus stop scene is by far my favorite, especially since it kinda relates to some of my old childhood memories. The bus is late though, and it gets dark. Note the Kitsune shrine hidden in the forest. Mei falls asleep while waiting for the bus, and that's when Totoro appears. After a short scene, he calls his friend to pick him up, the Neko Basu, or cat bus. But before he goes, Totoro gives him a present. It's a package of magical seeds. I'm going to leave it at that, because I want you to watch the movie. Like most artists, including Tezuka, Miyazaki tends to put himself into his films in one way or another. It's not really narcissistic, more just that a lot of his movies come from his own life's experiences. So Kanta, the neighbor boy, is a young Miyazaki, who did grow up in the country. This also tells us that the film probably takes place during the 50s or 60s, and not the 80s when the film was made, as well as the fact that they are living in a farming community, which takes days off for the children to help with the harvest. Another tell that Kanta is Miyazaki is that he's doodling in class, something most aspiring artists do. The second Kanta Miyazaki tale is that he's building a model airplane in one scene, and Miyazaki loves flying machines. You can see them in practically all of his films. Okay, maybe not this time. Disney recently released a new version of Totoro, with their little minions doing the voiceover. They basically changed everything sound-related about it, including the opening and ending vocal songs. Now, I'm not saying that Dakota Fanning isn't a good actress. I'm just saying that it was unnecessary. Like that Karate Kid remake.
Let's go! Hey, let's go!
And the lady singing the song in the beginning is shouting. I don't want to go on an adventure with someone who's screaming at me. And in the end song, they took out the synthesizer. You don't do that to an 80s film. You just don't. They'd be like replacing piano tracks on a silent film with hip-hop. Pianos, or in this case synthesizers, are signs of the times. Don't buy the Disney version. Buy the 20th Century Fox version. It looks like this. Joe Hisaishi has worked with Miyazaki since Nausicaa, which is Miyazaki's first feature film. Hisaishi is as much a genius as Miyazaki. It isn't just scoring the music for the instrumental pieces, he also wrote the music for the opening and ending songs. In anime, the opening and ending song have more meaning than they do in Western films. The opening song is almost like a prologue, and the end song is like an epilogue. In fact, if you watch the end credits, it plays out almost like an epilogue. Miyazaki has never done another end credits like this. I don't know why, but I wish he would. Ponyo really could have used an epilogue credits. Totoro is a truly great family film. Don't be misled by those Western films to say they're for family. What they really mean is for children. My Neighbor Totoro is a true family film because both parents and children find something to relate to in it. The animation is simply gorgeous, and the soundtrack is beautiful. That's why it's one of my favorite films, and I hope it'll be yours too. This has been Griffin-chan's Anime Blog.
Call it Pop Bubba Sparks.
Booty, 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 rockin' everywhere. Booty, 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 rockin' everywhere. Booty, 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 rockin' everywhere.